What's up, everybody? I'm back again. This is YGOU University. I am joined by...
Alex Marasco,
Jeremy Stockfleth,
and Bryce Stroik.
And if you guys really do enjoy our content, go ahead check us out at patreon.com/tcguniversity. Hit us up. Some of those perks are awesome. So our next topic, and I'm really, really interested to hear your guys' opinion on this, is what Konami has done right and wrong. And I know it's a little vague, so the first thing I want to talk about is the tournament structure in the tournaments themselves. Like the regional format, Yu-Gi-Oh! Days, and then YCSs, and how they kind of incentivize people to go to them, and then what they could do better with their tournaments.
I guess I'll start off. I think some of the prize support is a little lacking, but that's just my opinion. Especially like the UDS. Well, I mean, if you win a UDS, it's sick, but like otherwise, you're just getting lanyards, and I could really care less about a Yu-Gi-Oh! Lanyard, but that's just my opinion.
Okay. So you're like less incentivized to even play because the prizes aren't necessarily like helping you play the game or anything like that. It's just like a, hey, here's a participation trophy, lanyard. Not even trophy, but a lanyard. How about you guys? What do you guys feel like they could do better about tournaments?
I mean, I kind of agree with the prize support being a little lacking. Like, I know a lot of people play the game because, I mean, if they're like me, you kind of just like competing. Being competitive is just fun. But at the same time, you know, a lot of the times the prizes are just extra packs, or you have to place a certain, you know, like in top 8 to get the special deck box or the mat or something like that. But even then, it's a deck box and it's a mat. Everyone's got those already. So you only really get to the interesting prizes at like a YCS or a nationals level where you get the prize card. That's not released in a pack. It's you get it from being really good at a really big event. And I think that's cool. But at like a regional or lower event, it's less. It's just not as good. The prize support's not as good. It's a little underwhelming.
Agreed.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of the other games do it right. Like I know UFS, for example, like they give like free plane vouchers to the winners of their like regional level tournaments.
That's sick.
And like that's amazing. And I know when we were playing back like years ago, Force of Will, like their tournament was a free plane ride. Like if you got top 8, you got invited. If you got top 4, you got a free plane ride and stuff like that. So I think Yu-Gi-Oh could honestly take that into consideration. I know they don't want to do cash prizes, but I feel like vouchers for traveling is like one of the biggest things they could do. Like, hey, if you win a regional, you get a travel voucher to nationals. You get your invite, and then you get a travel voucher to nationals. I think that would help incentivize people, and then people would go to more than one regional. If you go to a regional, get your Nats invite, you're like, okay, cool, I'm done for the season. And you're like, and you and you stay at home. You're like, I have no reason to go there. I got my playmat, I got my deck box, stuff like that. And then if you do go, like you just don't care and you play fun decks. And that's no problem, but it takes away from the competitive side. I feel like I get less competitive as the season goes on almost.
Yeah, because I feel like a lot of people, when they do get their invite at those events, they kind of just, if they do show up the next one, they play something trollsy or fun, you know, that they know they're not going to do well with. They're just like, hey, this is cool. I like this deck. It's like a pet deck kind of. While that's cool, you know, play what you want, but it does kind of take that competitive spirit out of it after you've won one or done well at one event.
Do you think instead of just doing like the one national season, do you think they should like break it down into multiple seasons? So that way you have to get your invite for that season, like if they do like twice a year maybe, or like 3 times a year, and you get your invite for like some event in that season rather than just only for nationals. It would incentivize people to go to tournaments more.
I think it'd have to be invites to not necessarily nationals, because that gets expensive travel wise for a lot of people. But if you had like a midway event between like regionals and nationals for more of like a local or like a regional area, you know, do we only maybe have to travel a couple hours or something? So like do like, obviously you have regionals, but do like a regional like championship or something, and then step up to the national level.
Going off that, I think you could keep nationals and do something like that's every
quarter or something like that.
Every half. So you could do like a summer invitational and then like a winter invitational and then have nationals with it. And then hey, if you get to the regional and you get your Nats invite, but you also, if you did it in, you know, spring or whatever, you get your summer invitational invite, and then if you do it in the fall, you get your winter invitational invite.
Yeah, I think
and
that'd
so
be cool.
it incentivizes you to go to regionals because you got 2 other events, and then if you decide, hey, I got my summer invitational invite and I got my Nats invite out of the way, well, now I still want to get my winter invitational invite. And that way, like, it doesn't necessarily create that sense that you have to go to every regional, but it makes it so that you actually want to go every year. Because I know for me, like, as soon as I get my invite, I just, like, stop caring about all the regionals until nationals happens. And sometimes you get it right after nationals, and you're just like, cool, like, now I got to wait 9 months for my next thing. And then the format's completely changed anyway, so it really didn't matter to me.
A cool incentive they had for regionals was that they had the point system where you could earn points to that could be a way to skip nationals and go straight to worlds, was regional points. But regional prize support doesn't really like link you into like going to other regionals. Like if you earned like even like a bit of money, it would make more sense for you to go to another regional the next weekend, because that's what you'd have to do to win that, is to go every single time that's available.
Yeah, and most of the time, if you won multiple regionals in a row, what would you do? You'd sell your playmat, you'd sell the deck box, and then you'd sell all the packs you got. Mm-hmm. Like, you just try and sell everything on the secondary market anyways, which really, yeah, it's a roundabout way of giving cash prizes, but I feel like they could just up the prize support. We know Konami is a successful company, and their regional system is great, and people still show up, but, like, there's some regionals that only 80 people show up to, and then there's regionals, like, in California that have, like, 800 people that show up. And so I think in order to incentivize those regionals that have less number of people, give better prizes, more people are going to show up. And then for the regionals, like in California, like, it would feel terrible to do really well at a regional and all you get out of 800 people is a playmat and an invite. It just doesn't incentivize me to go to that tournament. I'm just like,
it doesn't like scale.
Yeah, it doesn't do well. So I think they could do multiple things, but they're just very, very stubborn on their prize support, and it's not helping the game.
It also doesn't like coincide with how like risky it is, like when you're playing Yu-Gi-Oh, you know, like just like how every decision you make is like so critical, and you could just lose and like drop out of the tournament off of like one misplay. Like that doesn't correlate to like the prize at the end.
Like, I think it's kind of
the intensity level.
Yeah, I agree with that for sure. And I think it's kind of cool that they have like the side events. Like at regionals, you usually have like your Winamats or your structure deck tournaments, and at YCSs you have those same things, but you also have like Attack of the Giant card, or you have your mini regionals, or if you win your regional there, you can get your invite to next year's nationals. And I think that's kind of cool, and that kind of incentivizes people to go, I would think, just so you have something to do in case you do end up, scrubbing out of the tournament, or you don't do as well as you'd like to. And I think that's, it's drawn me in a few times. When I took a couple years off, and nationals happened to be in the town that I was at the time, and so I went. I hadn't played for a year. I didn't have my invite, and so I went to basically see my buddies as well. But I also went in and I played side events. I went in and played the Winamats. I got a cool mat that you can only get from getting Winamats, and I tried the Attack of the Giant card. I didn't win it, unfortunately, but it happens. It was a bad time playing Shadalls and against Cleaforts. Whatever, happens. But I went, and I had fun regardless. I didn't play in the main event because I didn't have my invite, but I still went because it was fun. There were still things for me to do as someone who hadn't been in the game for a while, who hadn't played competitively for a couple years.
But let's say, change that, since it was in the city you lived in, now you live in Oregon, would you have went?
No. Well, it depends. It depends on where it is.
Yeah, but like, let's say you live across the country. Like, would you have an incentive to go to the nationals? No.
Most likely not.
Probably not. See, that's the problem, I feel like, is there's no incentive for people to travel long distances just to go. Like, unless you're like the hyper competitive player and you want to go there to win, there's no like incentive for the casual players. And I feel like having a good system, bringing up from the local level to the regional level and then to like the higher end competitive level, there should be a gradual step up. And then if someone does well at their locals, hey, you did well at your, like we live in Omaha, Nebraska. If you do well at your Omaha regional and you don't actually travel that much and this is the only regional you play in, but you win, hey, here's a travel voucher to nationals. That person probably wouldn't have gone to nationals otherwise, but now they will.
Well, I think it kind of brings us back to the prior topic when I was talking about catering to your entire audience, not just the competitive people. Having events in other cities, I think, incentivizes people just to travel. I mean, that's what a lot of people like to do, is just get out of their hometown, go do something fun for a while. And I think that even, again, not getting your invite, or just going to see friends, or to going to play in side events, I think that still might be enough for a lot of people to just say, hey, I know I live in Omaha, Nebraska, and regionals is in nationals is somewhere in California. I've never been to the West Coast. Let's go ahead and take a trip, play some cards, have a good time. And I think that's enough for a lot of people.
So, like the YCSs, they have like some of those side events that cater more to like casual players, and they have like the free play area. Mm-hmm. Like they have like the Pegasus League ones with the different rules and stuff like that. Like, do you think it'd be a better idea to have like try to implement those into like the regional level, so like more casual people would, instead of going to regional, going 0-3 and then being like, well, that was stupid, I'm not as competitive as these people and I don't really know what to do the rest of the day. Instead, if they try to implement more casual things to the regional level, if it would make people want to go to them more.
I definitely think so. Even the best players have bad days. You could be one of the best players in your locals and you could still go to a regional and scrub out round 2. And then you're at that point, you're tilted, you don't want to play anymore because you didn't do well, you're not getting your invite, whatever. I think that having that option, and especially if you've traveled, a lot of people travel a few hours, if not more, to get to these events. And I think if you have that option, to play something a little more casual outside of the regional and to get, some cool surprise support that you can only get from these small side events, I think that is definitely a positive for sure. It gives you something, not just something to do, but something to maybe just untilt. Something, especially like the structure deck tournaments, they hand you a structure deck. We all know those aren't competitive viable, at least not at one of them. But it gives you something cool. You're not playing against a bunch of different opponents who are all playing the same broken meta deck. You get to play a more casual environment, and I think it's a lot more fun, especially after a stressful day of trying to compete.
So do you think maybe like they could turn tournament formats into that? Like have a regional that's a structure deck tournament. Like, hey, we have a structure deck regional. Like, okay, everybody in this regional gets the structure deck. Let's see who wins. Let's see who does that. Now the casual players have an ability to compete with everybody else and also get their invites. But then the more competitive players' ability to use their skill and that deck.
I think the casual people would like it, but in contrast, I think the more competitive people would not like it because they're used to playing whatever format it is with their current deck to be competitive, not playing some structure deck. I don't know. Some people like the deck building advantage you get from playing in a deck building game.
Yeah, but we could have both, right? Like they could set up some regionals to be that way and then have just like a smattering of those regionals. Like, hey, towards the end of the nationals season or towards the, like right after nationals, like you really don't know what the regionals are like. There's that like lull period and then just throw some like fun regionals in there. I feel like that'd be a good way. And then along with that, I think they could just add those on. I think the number of tournaments and regionals and stuff is severely lacking.
On that same token, I think that if you did like specifically structure deck or for fun regionals, you would have to unfortunately have like a separate for fun structure deck nationals, because I think if you had casual players or more casual players, not necessarily completely casual, going to these structure deck regionals, then yes, they could get their invite by doing well with a structure deck because they're on the same playing field as all the competitive people who can spend the money to get the expensive
Then
cards.
they go to nationals with their structure deck.
And then
like,
they just get bodied because they're not prepared. They're like, whoa, this structure deck won me a regional, but now I can't stand against this tier 1 deck because it's not, there's no expensive cards in here.
Yeah, I was about to say the same thing. If they do a different sort of regional, they should have different prize support or prize structure for those regionals, which would include, if they have an invitational thing, it would have to be an invitational to a different sort of tournament rather than just the playing nationals. But I think it is a cool idea, and if they did have different invitationals for different tournaments, I mean, from their standpoint, they probably don't want to do that because it spreads the player base out more, and they just maybe that's something they're wanting to do. I don't know.
Man, I think you don't even have to do that because, like, yeah, I get the idea of the casual player now, like they won with their structure deck, maybe they like want to keep it, but a lot of those people understand that, hey, like it was a structure deck tournament, like this was given to me as the tournament thing, and then hey, I know the nationals format is advanced format. Like if you're gonna be traveling to regional anyways, you kind of understand that that's what it is. So more so, it's just getting more invites out there, but also trying to help those casual players be more incentivized to go to nationals. Because I think if like a newer player won a regional with the structure deck, now they can go, well, I have my nationals invite. Maybe I'll try a little bit harder. Maybe I'll deck build a little bit more, get a little bit more competitive with it because they have an incentive to do it now. Rather than if they go 0-3 drop every time. And now like, oh, I'm not going to go to nationals, so what's the point of me trying? I'm going to keep playing my fun deck at locals. It could turn a lot more of the casual players into more competitive players. Like give them that spark that they need.
A lot of people that like do top nationals, like that, like go to them. You can see in like deck profiles that they're like give out like a list of shout outs to like people they borrow cards from. Like finding success like ingrains you into your own little community, and then you can like ramp off your friends a little bit because like they might have cards they're not using that you could use.
For sure. It creates that sense of community again in the local level, and then, you know, in the more of the regional level, and then more national level.
It does. That's kind of what I want to touch on too is, you know, a lot of the more casual players are casual because they don't have, you know, the budget necessarily to pay for, because you look at a lot of the top decks right now, and they have a lot of the same core cards, like something like Infinite Impermanence, which is $100 a piece. That's a lot of the reason that I feel like a lot of casual players are casual. So I think if we did stick with the idea of these structured deck tournaments, instead of having an invite to nationals, I think you just offer different prize support, like just different swag you can only get from these certain events. I do agree that, you know, like what Alex said, with building a sense of community with all these people that do end up, you know, borrowing or pooling together with the rest of their community for cards they don't have, so they can play, you know, meta viable decks. But I think in this instance, still we would have to still consider the fact that each player is still their own card pool. You can't always, you know, guarantee that someone's going to have the cards you need, something like that.
So with that, how would you feel if regionals, like let's say Infinite Impermanence, that's a $100 card. What if at the regional level, hey, if you get top 4 at this regional, you get an Infinite Permanence that is full art or different rarity than it was. You take these meta cards, and then Konami starts making them as reprints, but more as prizes. So like the YCS prize card is like it's a one of. Mm-hmm. But at a regional level, why not just reprint some of the more expensive meta cards, but make them a different rarity or change it up somehow and award those as prizes too?
Yeah, Force of Will kind of did that back in the day, which is something I really liked because you could get some of like the harder cards to find, and they're also just they are a more expensive version, but it does bring down the price of the other one a little bit as well, which is nice.
Yeah, I think that would be good for that alternate prize support, to let people, to give casual players a chance to be competitive. You know, there are a lot of good casual players who are very good at the game, but they just can't afford to play the game. And so I think that would be a good alternative to you know, help them get into the game competitively.
Yeah, and in a sense, like I'll take our local for example. I'm not going to name names, but like there's people here that don't have competitive decks, but they have a lot of skill and they actually understand the game a lot. And if they did well at like a structured deck tournament and did their regional, they could post in their local Facebook, "Hey guys, I got my nationals invite. This is the deck I kind of want to build. This is the deck I kind of want to play at nationals. Can anybody help me out?" And a lot of the times there's a lot of people that are like, "Yeah, I got those extra cards. If you're going to nationals, like I'll see you there. It's not a problem." I want our area to do well. And I feel like a lot of people have that like community feel within their area, and like I know for me, whenever I go to like a regional or a YCS or nationals, I'm always checking in on my friends, like, "Hey, what's your record like? What are you doing? Like, congrats, like good job." Like I'm always excited for my friends to do well, and I'm excited for me to do well. So I know if like a bunch of the new casual players that I don't see going to those tournaments started going to them, like it'd create a bigger sense of community. Those people would get better. I would start getting better because they're getting better, and it just builds upon that, and then everybody becomes just overall better at the game, and it becomes a lot more competitive. And I think you can build a lot more player retention that way too. You don't see these people phasing in and out because they just lose like this fire for the game, or they're like tired of playing their janky decks and stuff like that. Like, oh hey, like I got a structured deck regional coming up. Like I'm not gonna quit the game. Like I can go play in that. Like it's perfect.
Yeah, and at that point it would start building attendance at the regular tournaments as well, because you're inspiring people to play, and that way, you know, the prize support does get better when you have more players at a tournament. So you have bigger turnouts, bigger prize support, which is just a cycle where you just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. Fostering the community would end up fostering tournaments, which fosters prize support. It's all tied in together.
I kind of had an idea. It was like along with like the alternate art and the structure deck regional, is like, what if the structure decks they use for those regionals were specifically made for those regionals? So like they specifically make a structure deck that you only get when you go to those regionals, and maybe they include cards that are hard to get for like the casual players, and it's more of an incentive for them to go. They get those cards in the decks, and yeah, it's just like a different incentive, and it's just like a deck that you can't just like go out and like practice with it, buy like all the other old structure decks. It's really just like sitting down, getting that deck that day, and then like seeing what it is.
Like a regionals 2019 structure deck list, almost.
Yeah, like they have a specific, and it's not like they print new cards in it. It's all reprints, so like it helps out the casual players because they get like reprints of cards that maybe they don't have, and they'll also get them more inclined to join the competitive scene as well because of the cards they get for going to that specific event.
Yeah, so like let's take for example, like how would that benefit Konami though as a company? Like what benefit do they get from that?
They get the casual players more inclined to go into the competitive scene,
just
which
attendance.
is in attendance as well.
Yeah, but I meant as far as like having to go through all the work of printing all those cards, making sure all the tournaments have those structure decks and stuff like that. So for my example, like you just take like a whatever Link starter deck, they probably already have a bunch of them manufactured. Like you don't have to change anything as a company. Like you just print more of a certain product, and now you're moving product that you wouldn't have moved otherwise. Like those starter decks maybe didn't sell as well. Hey, let's run a regional with them. Now we're selling these starter decks. So in a sense, you got to look at it from Konami's perspective of being like, why should we print more of these things when we could just do it the other way and attendance might be the same?
See, that's kind of, I see that as more of like a negative. If like you want to go to this tournament and play with the old structure deck that you could have had already, and play with like the old structure deck that you would have had already, I feel like that's not an incentive to want to go to the tournament. And especially if you see it from like your standpoint, it's like, oh, they have a surplus of this structure deck, they're gonna go get rid of them all at this tournament. It's like, I don't know, I'd be less incentivized if I knew that there's the possibility of them doing like creating a structure deck for specific.
If the prize pool stayed the same as it is though, but what if they made it so, hey, this starter deck tournament, you still get your nationals invite, you still get the same, like a different playmat, let's say. Mm-hmm. Now you get a different playmat for the structure deck regional rather than the regular regional.
Maybe an alternative card.
Yeah, and then maybe an alternate card. You don't care that they're like giving a surplus of the structure deck. You're like, okay, cool. I'm going to go buy this structure deck, going to go practice with it, so then I can get that card. You're still incentivized, but now the tournament format changes, but since you're a competitive player, you're willing to do that stuff and more so move into the aspect of, oh, I'm playing for the prizes, not for the format.
I think at that point, I think I would still agree with what Bryce said about like the custom starter deck or structure deck for the tournament, or have like a choice of like, one of 3 custom structure decks for the tournament, because while it might not be like an immediate monetary gain for Konami, you're fostering your community. And I think that building your community, while you might lose a little bit in the beginning, I think it's worth it in the long run to foster the community, to get more people in the groove of going to bigger events and seeing that the competitive side of the game is fun. And then that way they'll buy their own cards, buy more packs to build better decks, to show up to more regionals, and you'll build attendance, you'll build the community, and in that way you're going to have more people to sell to.
So let me ask you this, like if you had to choose between two, would you rather them have like a regional starter deck but you have the same prize pool, or they stick with the old structure decks but then a better prize pool?
If the regional decks have good cards in them, like Ash Blossom, like as a one of, or like something like that, I would be very interested in going to those and getting the cards,
especially for casual players as well.
That would bring those people into the, well, now I have these cards, I can enter the regional, so I'd be really interested in something like that.
Yeah, but you have to think each regional, like let's say California regional, they have 800 players. Now you got to put 800 Ash Blossoms into the rotation. You got to think about what that does to the secondary market.
It's true.
But if I do, top 8 gets these cool alternate art Ash Blossoms, okay, you're still putting more copies into the rotation, but it's maintaining a secondary market.
It's true.
They already kick people out of regionals.
The difference between the two ideas is one is benefiting the customers and one is benefiting Konami more.
For sure. Awesome. So I think overall all of us are pretty wanting these tournaments to be better. I think prize pool is the main thing we were talking about, and that we want the prize pool for these tournaments to be better. And I think in turn, it's going to help our communities grow. So in all reality, like it's just better for Konami to make the prize pools better and help foster a community of competitiveness, but also catering to the casual players, correct?
Yeah. For sure.
Awesome. Cool. So I think we're going to wrap it up for this segment. Catch us on the next one.